than that, thank you everybody for joining us today. So in this webinar, we are going to be chatting with the Toro Company, and we're going to talk about how they were able to innovate their product development by introducing a post-process automated FDM support removal solution. So during this webinar, because quarantine is in place, we want to try and give everybody an opportunity to interact in the audience. So we're going to be employing some real-time questions throughout this presentation. Responding is going to be really simple. All you need is a cell phone with a connection to the internet. If you're based anywhere outside of the United States, you're going to vote via the website URL that's displayed on the screen. If you're in the US, you're going to want to submit your vote via text, and there's going to be a number. And when that slide comes along, I'll talk you guys through it. Great. So what we're going to cover today is, next, I'm going to introduce you to our two presenters for the day. Those are the other two cameras you're seeing right now. Rob, who we'll be talking to from Toro, is going to discuss who the Toro Company is, and then give us a bit about their history, including their use of FDM printing. Then he's going to go over how they were able to scale their post-printing by introducing automated support removal, and how that, in combination with additive manufacturing, allowed them to revolutionize their product offerings. So then finally, to wrap things up, I'll let you know about some future virtual events going on, and then open it up to you for questions. So any of those questions, please enter them in the chat. You can enter them as they come to your mind, as they pop up as we're going through this, and then at the end we will get to them. So now, introducing our presenters. We have from PostProcess, our moderator. His name is Nate Harris, so he is our VP of Sales in the Americas. And then our special guest, who we are so thankful for taking the time from Toro, his name is Rob McArdell. He is the supervisor of the product development lab over at the Toro Company. So Nate, now I will pass it off to you.
Great, thank you, Francesca. Well, good morning to you, Rob, and everybody that's attending, and thank you so much for joining us to share about your additive experiences with the audience today. Maybe just take a moment, perhaps share a little bit about yourself before we dive into the meat of the matter.
Yeah, thanks, and good morning to you too, Nate. So I'm an industrial engineer with Toro. I've been with the company since 1993. Currently, I am the product development supervisor within the engineering technical services group, which is located at Toro headquarters in Bloomington, Minnesota. So in my role, I supervise all post-design aspects of product development, including fabrication, machining, prototype component manufacturing, welding, assembly, and of course additive manufacturing. And also I'm responsible for the lion's share of our industrial engineering within the product development lab.
Good. So clearly some broad shoulders there, Rob, carrying all that responsibility. So maybe let's let's start out by familiarizing everyone with what a force Toro is, certainly within your markets, and maybe you could share some background on your company and the products you supply, as well as the main customer bases that you currently serve.
Absolutely. So Toro was founded in 1914, actually as the Toro Motor Company, and we built engines for a company called the Bull Tractor Company. Those two companies merged and became the Toro Tractor Company in 1919, which then eventually evolved into what is now the Toro Company, which hosts 15 brands and is now an international enterprise, working and serving markets in 125 different countries. So Toro is the leading worldwide provider of innovative solutions for the outdoor environment, which includes turf maintenance, snow management, landscape, rental and specialty construction equipment, and also irrigation solutions.
Good. I should mention there was a couple of Toro very industrial mowers that were buzzing around the neighborhood yesterday. So clearly your brand is pretty present here in Ohio. So
that's great. I get that a lot.
Yeah, that's right. there's a lot of additive technologies to choose from in the market, clearly, and today we're focusing on FDM. When did you first implement FDM printing into your product development, and what opportunities did it open up for Toro?
So our first printer was purchased in 2012. Was a smaller printer, slightly larger than a desktop version. So it had a small work envelope, which kind of limited us to small prototype components, mostly to test form and fit of those components, sometimes a little bit of functionality. But we did quickly realize that we needed to expand from that small machine. So we've since invested in a total of 6 FDM printers, 2 of which are the largest industrial printer available. And so we've broadened our horizons in terms of part size capability. And then we also kind of started evolving into making multiple components that we could then use bracketry and fasten together, or sometimes glue together to make larger parts to serve our customers even more, such as hoods like what you see in the picture there. We did, though, even with all of that, start to see a lot of capacity issues, and we couldn't really take our post-printing efforts, or what we really wanted to do after printing parts or assembling them, beyond what you see in those photos there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it sounds like you guys have been in the additive industry for about 8 years now, right?
That's correct. Yep.
Awesome. Okay, so now we're going to pause and take the moment to poll just to see where the audience is at as far as additive experiences. So now you're going to see this populate. Once again, for those international people who are in the call, please go to that link you're seeing at the top of your screen. If you are within the United States, you can text to the number 22333. Text PPT 105 and then submit your answers for how long your organization has been involved in additive manufacturing. Are you relatively new, in that 0 to 2 year range, 2 to 5 years, 5 to 10 years, or 10 years plus? And we'll wait a moment here to give everybody the opportunity to respond.
Don't be shy, audience.
Great. So this is a really interesting answer. It's awesome because regardless of how long really you've been in the industry, if you're working with FDM at all and post-printing at all, I'm sure parts of this presentation are going to be really interesting to you. So it's great to see these numbers changing and seeing so many different people embracing this industry.
Yeah, thanks, Francesca. It's insightful. Rob, you mentioned in some fashion issues with throughput there towards the conclusion of your comments. What sort of bottlenecks did you notice within your FDM prototyping workflow as volume started to grow?
Yeah, that's a great question. And of course, capacity is always an issue. There's never enough machines, never enough equipment. We make prototype components for 300 plus designers at this facility. So, whether you have 6 or 16 or 60 printers, it's never enough. So it really forces you to look at the entire value stream. And support removal was certainly the largest contributor to our workflow challenges or bottlenecks. We were spending 2 times build time just removing support from parts. So, if we had a 3-day build, it took us 6 additional days to clean all the support off of all those parts. And so, it took away from programming time, from processing time, and it was very difficult to communicate to our customers why they couldn't have their parts. They were done printing 2 days ago. Well, we still need 4 more days to clean them. So those were some significant issues for us.
Yep. Interesting. And I remember us chatting briefly about that before, but learning that post-printing was taking 2.5, sometimes more, to get a final part up to 6 days. 6 days. That's incredible. So maybe Rob, tell us a little bit about how these bottlenecks impacted your department's overall efficiencies.
Well, again, the largest impact was the time remaining after printing before we could deliver parts. Cleaning time contributed to a little bit more than 25% of our labor component to making the parts, and we didn't have time to completely finish our post-processing efforts or goals, or even address anything that we really wanted to present to our customer base. There just wasn't enough time left. Again, if we had a 10-day lead time, that would consist of, say, 3 days to build the parts or print the parts, another 6 days to clean them. That only left us a day to do anything else we needed to do. So,
interesting. Francesca, I think you wanted to...
Yeah. Sorry about that. I had myself muted unintentionally. So since we're on the topic of experiencing these issues with post-printing, now we're going to take the opportunity to conduct another poll. So once this populates, you'll be able to see, again, same link, same number. If you've already entered, you do not need to re-enter. Now you can just submit your answer for this question. But now we're asking, really, what is your biggest post-printing challenge? Are you having difficulty with how long it's taking you to finish your part? As Rob had just said, taking 6 days to finish that part when the build was only taking 3. When you're finishing your parts, are they becoming damaged, making you reprint them? Or possibly consistency of those finished parts, if that's a challenge for you. Or finally, throughput limitations. If you can't post-print as many as you're printing, and that being an issue, we would love to know. And if you're experiencing something else, we do have that E option. We'll wait just another moment to allow some more responses. So I think this is really interesting and really exactly what we were anticipating to see, that length of time to finish parts, which is really the biggest pain point that Rob was talking to here. And now we can get into really how we were able to move forward and mitigate those issues. So I'll hand it back to Nate and Rob.
Yeah, again, and interesting and pretty consistent data from what we've seen on the FDM side. So Rob, your department at Toro purchased the automated base support removal solution. I think it was around 2019 for your FDM printing. Maybe tell us a little bit about your day-to-day use of this particular software-driven solution.
Yeah, so really the base has been implemented into the value stream and fit very nicely into it. It runs probably on the average about 10 hours a day, and in those 10 hours supports the 6 printers and their output that I was referring to earlier. We have one technician that does all of our additive manufacturing, at least up until the point of support being removed, the parts being clean and ready to move on. So with the software control over temperature, pressure, agitation, and duration that the base provides, he doesn't really need to think about it too much. We've got a half a dozen programs saved in the control for different situations, different support material, and he just pushes the right number for the right program and the green button and walks away. So again, it's integrated very well into the value stream. We went from 2 times build time to clean parts to about 4% of the build time on the average. So tremendous improvement. It's very rare that something takes more than a couple of hours to clean and remove all of the support. So
in essence, once you had the recipes and the parameters dialed in, it was press play and walk away, and then come back and remove the parts once it ends. Very good. So would you mind sharing maybe
take them out of the base and
yeah. Would you mind sharing maybe
I was just responding to what you said there.
Post-printing has enabled you to scale your additive manufacturing process?
Sure, absolutely. One thing is we've actually put a little lofty goal in place, but we'd like to see our lead time become our build time. That's the goal, right? So as close as we can possibly get to that. We've come pretty close. It's within a couple hours of the build time. So it's just remarkable. I can't stress that point enough. So now, instead of having a day to scramble and assemble and put multiple pieces together and put them on a unit to give our customers some idea of what it could look like, we have days to do those things and more. We've been asked to do things like restore vintage Toro equipment and display it in Toro's museum. We've been able to take the time required to get additive manufactured components assembled and finished to a high level of quality, Gulf show quality. In fact, one of Toro's latest offerings was introduced at the world's largest golf show just a little over a month ago, and all the body parts that you see in the picture now, everything that's red there, was printed in my shop and ran through our base and then finished by one of our bench technicians. And what's really interesting about that is we had about 12 days to do this. And so before the base, it would have never been possible. But we were able to pull it off. We even had a day to spare, got this thing down to the world's largest golf show in Florida. And it was just a tremendous showing at the show. So, again, without that rapid support removal, we would have never had time to do this. So we're now able to bring things from design to market, get it in front of thousands of people at one of the world's largest shows in our biggest industry, and less than 12 days. So again, the base, with both being a robust machine tool as well as something that's integrated with some very intelligent, user-friendly software, really helped to make that possible.
Wow, that's an impressive mower. I might need to put myself on the list for one of those next summer. Might be overkill for my yard though, but gorgeous piece of machinery.
Well, we'll talk about that later. It just depends on this whole Packers-Vikings thing. So.
There we go. Sidebar. Well, clearly, this has provided some improvement in terms of your workflow efficiencies, and certainly sounds like it's made some impact in terms of some of your product offerings, which is a huge bonus. And obviously moving from I think we said it was 6 days of post printing to now 6 hours. That's pretty remarkable. So, Rob, this is where you get to be everybody's hero that works in the additive environment for our audience here. What is the one piece of wisdom or advice you would give to someone who's thinking about scaling up their additive operation?
I think the biggest thing for me, of course, hindsight being 2020, is I would really focus on understanding what you want to accomplish with 3D printing, what your customer base is going to be, and most importantly, what those customers' expectations will be, and make sure you set yourself up in order to be able to meet those expectations. I can tell you in the industry that everybody wants everything fast. So again, understand those expectations, set yourself up for them, look beyond just simply 3D printing. That's the easy part. So my focus would be on pretty much everything other than that. And make sure that you get everything in order as quickly as you can.
Great feedback, and certainly for everybody that's listening, that's from someone who's been with Toro since 1993 and obviously seen the evolution of manufacturing and iterative design. So some great words of wisdom. Thanks for sharing that, Rob. Well, Rob, I think we're coming up close to the end here. From me to you, and certainly on behalf of PostProcess and the many attendees on today's call, thank you. Thank you for having entrusted your additive operation utilizing our solutions, and excited to continue that partnership. And certainly thank you for investing your Thursday morning with us in light of the world's event. So again, very much appreciated.
Okay, so I have a question here regarding how long it takes to program the software to run the parts. So that's done really quickly. It's going to depend on your knowledge of the machines, but we do have this great ITI process, which is installation, training, and integration. So one of our application engineers will come on site and program those for you. So we'll look at your process, look at your parts and your materials, and then we can have those all set up for you so you'll be ready to go before we even leave your site. I have another question here about disposing of the detergent. So that's going to be heavily reliant on your local guidelines. My recommendation generally is if you've ever worked with waterworks before, we recommend you handle it in the same way. So now I have a question regarding how long does the detergent last for? So this is highly dependent on your throughput. We do have sensors in the machine to indicate once you have reached saturation, but additionally, when we are performing that installation, training, and integration, we'll look at your process and give you some recommendations regarding how often you should be swapping out, as well as performing regular preventative maintenance. So I have a question here if we're also available in Europe. Yes, we are. If you navigate to our site, you'll be able to see how to contact our European office. And I have a second question regarding how often to change the detergent. And again, that's going to be very reliant on how much support material you're putting into it as well. We do have two different machine offerings. So we talked about the base today, which is our larger option. We do have another machine called the Desi that is half of that. So depending on how much support material you're putting through that, that's going to be how often you're changing that. And one of our application engineers will be there to help guide you through this. Okay, so we have a question here if the base also removes support from PolyJet parts. So we do have options for that, but we do have a different solution that we recommend for PolyJet just because of the materials and the different mechanical energy sources that we leverage in that technology. So that would be one of our submersion technologies or our SVC machines. And if you want to learn more about those, we do have other webinars that are pre-recorded, or you can get in contact with our sales team. So for that, I would tell you to go to our site to learn more about our PolyJet offerings. I have a question here about what kind of PPE is required to use your machines. So we always require nitrile gloves and safety glasses to keep you safe.
I think there's a question there too about how large are parts that Rob, you're actually putting inside the base. What sort of, give us some XYZ rough dimensions of the kind of parts you're putting in your base.
Sure. So our largest work envelope in terms of our largest printer is 36 by 26 by 28. So that would be, you can get a little bit more than that if you go diagonally, but that's roughly the largest single part we put in there. There's plenty of room in the base.
Okay, so I have a question here regarding service. So we do have different options for service plans so that we can always make sure that your machine is up and running and we're happy to support you. Additionally, we do have, again, that ITI training. So while we're there at your site, we'll teach you how to maintain the machine properly so we can mitigate the issue of having any unnecessary downtime. I don't know why that just popped up. Sorry about that. So yeah, we will train you so you know how to properly service your machine and do the servicing that we want you guys to do. Anything that would be out of the normal, if there is a leak or something outside of that, you do have that service contract intact so we can come and help and support you. Okay, we have a question here. Rob, what support removal solution did the base replace? A little bit.
So basically, we had just a series of soak tanks. We tried a couple of different types. We tried, a sonic tank and another basically soak tank with a little bit of agitation and temperature. So it was essentially, soaked apart for a number of hours, pull it out, rinse off all the loose stuff, soak it again for a few more hours, and continue repeating that process until we finally got all the support removed.
Okay, so we have another question. Do sparse parts in the base fill up with the solution? So by that meaning, do they absorb the detergent? So since our cycle times are most often under 2 hours, they don't have the same opportunity to absorb the liquid the way that they do when they're submerged for hours on end. So we, on average, see our dry times for parts being about a third of what people are typically seeing. Rob, I don't know if you've printed any Sparks parts or that's something that you've seen.
Yeah, I would agree. It's much less of an issue because, again, the duration is nothing compared to the soak methods of support removal. So yeah, the parts dry much faster and we've really had no issues.
All right, great. Okay, so we are 1 minute over. So any additional questions we can follow up with in an email, but I don't want to take any more of anybody's time. Again, Rob, thank you so much. Everybody at PostProcess is really grateful for this. Any last thoughts from anybody else?
It's been my pleasure.